guys, my name is Mackenzie and this is the first week in a design and front end challenge. So how this series is going to work is 1 week I'm going to design a UI, and then the next week I'm going to code that UI, and I'm going to be doing it 6 different times over the span of 12 weeks. So it's my 12 and 12 or 6 and 12 challenge, whatever you want to call it. But today I am going to be designing an agency website. So let's jump over to the computer and get going. All right, before we jump into Photoshop, I just want to share what I'm thinking for this design. So overall, this is gonna be a fairly simple design, but I sketched up what I'm thinking. So up top, we're gonna have a banner with the title, subtitle, and call to actions. Below that, we are gonna have 3 different boxes showing the various types of services we offer as an agency. Then below that, there'd be a section for the past work and possibly some client logos to just add an extra level of trust and show who we've worked with in the past. And then finally at the bottom, there would be a final call to action and a button to contact us. So let's jump in, get going. We'll turn this into a beautiful UI design. All right, so let's open up a new document and call this agency design and make it 1600 by 3000 pixels, 72 pixels per inch, and the RGB color, and then the background content's white. All right, so I'm just gonna hit that. And the first thing I want to do is set up some guides. So I'm going to use the guide extension, and let's see. So this is 1600 pixels wide. I want the actual design to be 1440. So unless my math is wrong, that would mean I have a margin of 80 pixels on either side. So let's add 80 pixels. Let's make this a 3-column grid, and let's make the gutters be, let's say, 30 pixels. Let's add guides. All right, that gives us something to work with. All right, so up top I said I want a banner with a full bleed background image. So I've already gone to unsplash.com and picked out several images I can work with. So I'm gonna go through those and pick out my favorite. So these were all the ones I selected. They're all pretty similar. They all have a desk, a workstation, etc., which is kind of cliche, but honestly, I would love to take a custom photo, but in this case, I'm just working with what I got. I really love this one because there's a lot of negative space, which would be perfect to place text over. So, so far, this one is my favorite. I like this one too, but it's a little bit busy. This one's good too, but I kind of think between this one and this one, I'm preferring the darker one. So let's give this a try. All right, so what I am going to do is let's center that, and I'm going to create a shape, grab the rectangle tool. Let's select a dark bluish gray color, something like hex code 3F3D4F. All right, and let's create a shape. See, I don't want the entire image to show through, so what I'm gonna do is put that behind there and use it as a mask. That looks pretty good. And also, I'm not quite liking this color, because if we put text on top, let me just show you. Some text. Let's select it as white, and let's make it bold. So what I'm thinking is I want this to be, a slightly more bluish gray color. So I'm going to drop the opacity of the actual image so that the shape behind it shows through a bit. And then that way the legibility of the text on top will be a bit easier to read. All right, so this is good. So as for the font, I am going to use Brandon Grotesque Bold as well as regular for this design. Brandon Grotesque is by far one of my favorite fonts. I absolutely love it. All right, so let's add a title. So I'm gonna say, we create beautiful products. And this seems a bit large, so let's scale that down a bit. Something like that would work. All right, and let me bring up the guides again. I'm going to add a midpoint guide just so I can see where the absolute center is. And let's center that. Perfect. All right, and then below that, let's add a subtitle. For this, I'm going to go to Chrome and go to hypsum.co and just grab some hipster ipsum filler text. And let's change this to regular and shrink it down quite a bit. Something like that looks pretty good. The leading is a bit off, so let's bump that up. Perfect. All right, and now let's make those buttons. So let's grab a rounded corner, and I'll just say, let's make a 200 pixel wide and a 50 pixel high. And let's try let's do a 30. Whoops, where did that go? Okay, so here's the shape we created. So we have this bluish gray background. Let's pick a color that would pop for the call to action. I am thinking a greenish color. Something like that would look good. Maybe something a little bit lighter. That is perfect. I love that. Okay, so I'm gonna make this button a bit bigger, bump up the border radius a bit more. Then let's put some text over top of it and say learn more. And we will make this bold. And then it should probably be a bit smaller. Give some padding in there. Let it breathe. Okay, so that is one button. That looks good. Actually, even that's a little large. So let's shrink both the text and the button. And then let's select both, duplicate it. And since this second button, whoops, let's center both of those. There we go. Since the second button is to play a video, I'm thinking it doesn't need to be as important visually, so the color can be far different. So let's make it white, but what I'm thinking is we'll drop the opacity. That way the focus is still on the learn more. And then I will say play video. Let's create, I'm gonna open up Illustrator and create a quick play button for this. All right, so all we need is 3 points. Do boom, boom, boom. This, let's extend it out a bit more. Maybe even a bit more than that. All right, and then let's select each and bring in the borders, make them a bit rounder. All right, and let's get rid of that. Let's keep it white and tab over. Perfect. That's probably a bit too large. That's a bit better. And let's center all of that. Looks good. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is select the background and lock those. That way I can select all of these layers and center it vertically. All right, let's create a quick logo. Whoops. What I'm gonna do is just create a simple text logo. Let's call this like super mega awesome or something like that. And just to make it not so boring, let's make this regular. Then we'll make it right justified and shrink it down quite a bit. That looks pretty cool. Super mega awesome design agency. All right, and let's also create a navigation. So I'm going to go over to the very edge of the guide. And then let's see, we would want a home button. I put 10 spaces between that, and let's add a portfolio. I'm gonna copy that as well as the space. And let's do services as well. I don't think this should be nearly as big or bold. Actually, I like the bold. So let's keep that, but shrink down the size a bit. Make sure it's lined up with the logo. Perfect. And then let's duplicate this because I want to add a get in touch button. And then let's see, for the background, let's do the same as the play button. So it's not super in your face. And we'll shrink it down a bit too. We'll just make sure it's centered. That looks good. Cool. Actually, it's not quite centered. That looks good. Okay. So let's go back to Illustrator. I want to, let's change color to this just so we can see it. I just want to create a couple arrows pointing down. So I'm holding Shift while I select these points. And then I'm going to add a stroke, select it. Let's bump up the stroke a bit. And let's add the cap and rounded corner. And then let's also try something like that. And let's change color to white. And then we'll drag it over to Photoshop. So wheat, let me bring up the guide, center that. And then I'm going to position this halfway between the Learn More button and the edge. And then let's drop the opacity so it's not taking up any visual importance because it's really nice to have. We don't need it very much at all. So let's take a look. That looks pretty good, except I feel like it should be bumped up a bit more. And then this should be a bit lower. All right, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to select all of these, group that into banner. All right, so the next section we have 3 boxes. So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna select the rectangle tool, create a background color. I don't want that dark color. I'm thinking maybe something like super light with a bluish tint to it. Almost white, but not quite. That looks good. And then I want a rounded corner tool. I was thinking we would do 3 boxes. Let me bring up the guides. All right, so that's way too much rounded corner. Let's make it like 7 pixels. And we can make it a bit taller and a bit wider. Let's make it fill the center column. All right, so the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to make it white and then I'm going to add a drop shadow to make it pop out a bit more. So let's see. Maybe make it a bit lighter. That looks pretty good. So opacity is at 25, distance and spread at 0, and size is at 57. And then it's on blend mode of multiple or multiply and black color. All right, that looks pretty good. So now let's create one for each column. All right, so whoops, let's bump these up a bit more. So the reason I'm overlapping these is just to make it have a bit more depth, and also because the concept of above the fold doesn't really exist anymore since there's so many devices. The term made sense when there was only like a few different sizes and there wasn't mobile devices and all that. So I personally don't really believe, but still the majority of people have a 1330 by 768, I believe. So 768 pixels would be about right here. So what I'm thinking is, let's add a guide to right there. The majority of people will see all of this when they land on the page. So what I want to do is unlock this layer, Let's bring it down a bit more so it shows a bit more of the image. Oh, okay. And then let's bring down the shape on top of it. All right, that looks good. All right, so I'm gonna lock those. So like I said before, the reason I want this is so that people will see that there's more below so they know to scroll. That's why I'm putting the arrows here as well. All right, so we have the 3 boxes. Let's add some text. So I'm going to create a center. Let's select that bluish, dark bluish gray color again. Actually, I know that was the color of the banner. There we go. Okay, so let's see the services we would offer. Let's do branding as one. Let's shrink the size down because we don't want it to compete with what's up here. And then I'm going to copy that. Let's bring it above everything and let's make it that same color but a bit lighter. So there's some visual hierarchy between the title and the subtitle. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's shrink down the text a bit and there we go. Maybe shrink it a bit more. So I'm going to select all those and center it. Looks like it's centered. All right. Then let's add a learn more button to these as well. Because what I'm thinking is there would be a page specifically for each service that explains more in depth about that service. So let's make these a bit bigger so there's more room to breathe. Then let's make this slightly smaller. This doesn't need quite as much leading. Let's make it a bit tighter. And let's make the branding, title, and the subtitle slightly smaller. That looks pretty good. I'm going to unlock that layer. Select all those, center it. Perfect. All right, now let's duplicate those twice. Another service we could offer would be UI/UX design. And then one more, maybe brand research or something like that. Actually, let's say something like development. All right, that looks pretty cool to me. All right, so let's move on to, well, first let's group each one of these individually. Let's say call out 1. Call out 2. Call out 3, and then I will group all these groups into services. And then let's put the background at the bottom of the services. Perfect. All right, this is looking good. Let's move on to the past clients section. Let's do past or previous work. Let's create a new folder to put everything in. So what I'm thinking here is let's create a shape with the dark gray, something like so. And then let's select the title. All right, so this should be slightly smaller because if you think about the page, this should be the H1, the main headline, and then everything else should be H2. So it shouldn't be as big in my opinion. So for this, I'm going to say our work. And then I did grab some logos, so let me grab those. What I'm going to do is grab like Netflix. Let's do Amazon and maybe Samsung and WordPress. Okay, let's just do all these. Open them up in Illustrator, except Instagram did not open in Illustrator. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just copy each of these over. So Instagram is huge. Let's shrink that down. So this is to show some previous clients, just to instill some trust and show that the big names have worked with us, and maybe the potential client would want to work with us too. All right, so I'm going to, let's see. Let's use WordPress. All right, so obviously this looks absolutely terrible. So what we will do is make them all a similar color. So let's add a color overlay and let's make it slightly above the bluish gray color. Just make it slightly lighter. That looks pretty good. So select that and I'm going to hold Option and drag the effect onto all the other logos. Perfect. Now let's select all those, make sure they're centered. Amazon needs to go a bit down just because the arrow messes things up a bit. Perfect. All right, that looks pretty good. They are a bit large. It's competing a bit with the title of this section, so we'll shrink that down. All right, so let's copy this and we'll use this as a mask for this section. So our main one, I want it to be a bit bigger than the center column. So it's going to run over into the other columns. Let's see, I'm going to grab some of my work from my daily design series. Let's do I'm just going to grab my favorites. The Amazon redesign, that was one of my favorites. All right, so let's shrink that down. There we go. So now I'm going to hold Option and then click between the Amazon redesign layer and the rounded corner, and that will act as a mask. Perfect. Let's select both those layers and make it slightly larger. All right, that looks good. So let's copy that rounded corner and shrink it down. Make sure it stays within the column. Let's see. I also really liked the Netflix one. Where's Netflix? Here we go. Netflix redesign. And hold Shift and scale it down. Perfect. And I'm going to copy the Netflix, bring it over to this side. And let's delete that. Let's see. Let's get the WordPress admin redesign too. And I'll scale that down and apply the mask. Perfect. Okay, so now what I want to do is I don't want this extending past it, so I'm going to select all of these, group them together. I'm going to call this past work. I'll call it work examples. All right, and then I want to select this background layer, hit Command and click on it to bring up the marquee, and then I'm going to go to that group and apply a mask to it. Perfect. Let's add a few circles to represent the slider. So for the main one, I'm going to select the green color, and then let's create 2 more. Make sure they're equally apart, and let's do the same color as the logos. Actually, you know what? I feel like the logos are slightly too dark. So let's center these and then do it vertically between the logos and the first work example. All right, then let's go to Instagram. Let's make these a bit lighter. That looks good. So it's brighter than this button, but it's not as bright as the artwork title. So I'm going to do that and then apply the same to WordPress, Netflix, Google, Apple, and Amazon. Perfect. So this is looking good. I want to do something right here. So on this call out section, I think I want something that guides your eye down to the past work. So basically to represent that branding or our branding work, UI and UX design and development, and guide your eye down to show the past work that represents all of those services. So let's grab the rectangle tool and do something like this. So it should be not quite as dark. Let's make it slightly darker than this. So we don't want this like in your face, but it will add a nice touch in my opinion. At least I think. Let's give it a try. Perfect. And let's create one more, turn it horizontal. And then we will extend it to this far one. Perfect. Now let's add this center one, make it go all the way down. All right, so the only issue with that is it's not quite centered. There we go. That looks pretty good. I think that might be too dark still. Let me merge those shapes. Drop the opacity slightly. There we go. That's looking good. So now we have branding, UI, UX, and development, and then all those services flow into our work section. Yeah, I'm digging that. Cool. So the last section, let me close out of these. Whoops, background color. Let me lock that. I'm going to select the logos, put that in a group, and then circles, and I'll call this slider navigation. All right, cool. Now, the final section would be the final call to action, and that is going to be pretty simple, kind of the same as the top. So I'm going to select the top, title, subtitle, and the button. And then let's just hold Option and click and drag those to duplicate them. All right, then let's drag that up and out. All right, what I'm gonna do is lock the other groups. All right, let's drag that up and out. Okay, so let's change the color. Let's make it that. Perfect. The dark gray. Let's also make this the dark gray, but this should probably be something lighter. Perfect. All right, then let's just say get in touch. If I could type today. So this is far too large. Let's make it match the same pixels as, let's see, 59.57. 59 pixels, much better. All right, then let's make sure all these are centered. Then I want a big call to action. So let's make this button pretty large. Let's make it a full column width. And then let's bump up the border radius so it's a full half circle. And then let's say contact us. That is far too large. All right, let's shrink that down a bit. That's much better. Okay, I'm not liking this transition between Amazon and the background of the call to action. So let's create a new shape and let's make it, grab the rectangle, create a new background color shape, and let's make it match that first section. Cool. And then let's select everything, minus the background, center it vertically. Perfect. Then last thing I want to do is add a copyright. So let's do copyright 2016 Kinsey Child / super mega awesome. All right, and let's change that to a bold, and let's make that fairly small. And then let's make this act as a link, and then we'll make that green. And let's crop it. All right, then I just need to group this last section as final CTA. And let's take a look at what we've done. This looks pretty good to me. So when they land on this, they would see everything from the banner, everything inside the banner. If they scroll down, they would see branding, UI, UX design, and development. Then their eye would flow to the Our Work section. And then after that, there's one final call to action to get in touch so that the brand, the super mega awesome brand, can help whatever potential client with their design problems. All right, so this is looking good. All right, guys, that is all for this episode. If you're interested in picking up the PSD, the source file, go to this link right here and you can download that for free. And be sure to come back here next week when I go ahead and code this design. All right, see you guys.